Awesome. I see Susan. I see Natalie.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Hello. There's Susan.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Susan.
Okay.
There's Ren and Nat. Hi, Ren and Liz and Natalie.
Hello. Okay. All right. Oh, who's that?
Sorry, you're going to hear that from time to time.
Oh,
It's
we know
okay.
who that is.
That's June.
June. That's a very weird sounding pigeon or a dove.
She's guarding the house.
Oh,
I'm sure there's wild turkeys that kind of live in our court. And she must make me safe from them.
there's a bird.
Hey.
Hi, Bailey.
Haley says hi.
So I think we'll introduce ourselves right now. We've got, we're 10 past and we can continue to admit people as they log on. I'm Ellie Patterson. I'm the treasurer of Palomacy. I'm hosting the Zoom. And I have with me my mascot, Charlie, my blind feral. And I have, at the moment, I have 4 doves and 2 special needs pigeons. I've been with Palomacy for about 5 years, I guess, maybe a little bit longer than that. So I have some expertise, by no means a all-around expert, but I'm happy to answer questions wherever I can chime in. Hava, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Hava Sonye. I'm the president and one of the co-founders of Great Lakes Pigeon Rescue, and also a long distance Palomacy, formerly in person, now currently long distance Palomacy volunteer. And this is Bailey, one of our pigeon family members. She is also a blind feral. So I'm really excited that Bailey and Charlie are meeting virtually.
Aww.
And let's see. Yeah, I'm an avian rehabber. We have 7 permanent pigeon family members currently, and who all kindly share the house with us, and always a large rotating variety of fosters and rehab birds. And I'm just so delighted to be here with such compassionate, talented people.
We're delighted to have you here, to be sharing this with you guys. Whoop, Jill, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello, hi, I'm Jill. I'm the care coordinator for Palomacy, and I have been volunteering with Palomacy for 11 years now, working for Palomacy for 3. I take care of, my original title was bird care coordinator, but Elizabeth changed that, our founder, Elizabeth Young, to care coordinator, because she says I care for the people too. So I care for, my job is to sort of keep track and care for all of our foster birds. And in doing so, I care for their people too. All of our wonderful foster homes, that is always growing because people are finding birds all the time, and I'm always needing and wanting foster homes for these birds. I can't take them all. We're all full.
Mm-hmm.
I have probably about 50 pigeons right now. I don't know how many are mine, but probably about 16. I need to count. Okay. But
Okay, you have a lot of birds.
I have a lot of birds, and
Okay.
I also have doves, and some are my own, but I foster doves as well. And I have, let me see if I can show you Daisy. This is,
Aw,
you see Daisy Jesus Rodriguez?
Daisy Jesus Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's the name that the guy that caught her named her
okay.
Daisy, and his name was Jesus Rodriguez. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
her name on the.
Oh, very
I
good.
just think that's the cutest thing in the world. So that's what I call her. She was scalped. She came in scalped, so she's recovering here in the house. And I'm
Good.
happy to be here.
I'm very pleased that you're here, Jill. It's lovely to see you. And Blanca, sorry.
That's okay. I'm Blanca Uribe. I'm also part of the Great Lakes Pigeon Rescue Team. I'm vice president with Haba and medical director. I've been rescuing and rehabbing pigeons for about 5 to 6 years now, but with Great Lakes, 2 years and a half, and I love to do that. I love to help pigeons. I love to be part of this wonderful community that I was always admiring Palomacy for what you guys do over there. And I'm so happy to be part of a group like that now here in Chicago, thanks to Hava invited me to join this amazing group to helping pigeons. So being said that, I'm so happy to join this forum. It's my first time being online with pigeon people, because most of the time I'm offline, just work hands-on with the birds, in rehabbing and rescuing or foster care or in the shelter. But well, I want you to introduce Astrid. She's one of my pigeons. She's a racer. We got her with pneumonia and a lot of issues, and she's also a special needs bird. She's paralyzed. They couldn't tell what was wrong, but she's the best pet ever. She's even puppy trained. She let me know when she wants to go to the bathroom. That's why she doesn't wear diapers. She doesn't need, she really lets me know, me or my husband, with like little sounds that she wants to go to the bathroom. So she's a really smart bird, and it's such an example of how resilient pigeons are. She has full body muscles. She wings her size all the time. And she's really excited, but she's so well behaved. And well, I probably like Jill, I have so many pigeons that I lost count of them because my house is always a revolving door. I have right now about 25 on rehab. Some are mine, others are just enjoying the aviaries at our Christina's house that she built a beautiful aviary. So my healthy ones are enjoying free flight time while I take care of the ones in it, so I can keep being a revolving door. So that's basically what I'm doing, and yeah, I'm happy to be part of this group. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's really nice to meet you. For everybody on the call, I just want to set a couple of ground rules before we start asking questions. I would ask that participants sort of keep themselves muted until they have a question or they want to join the conversation. It helps with the recording that we're making, and just it helps people hear what other people are saying. Sometimes we can get feedback when people aren't muted. So we just ask for you to stay muted until you want to jump in. And you feel free to jump in with a question anytime. Also, encourage you to type a question into the chat. And I can also communicate in chat as well. I thought that your description of Astrid and how she has learned to communicate with you and poop, at a certain time, or not at a certain time, but she lets you know when she wants to poop. It's a great introduction to our first topic, which is bird behavior. That seemed to be the most interesting topic from the poll on Facebook. I just thought we would start with that as a topic, and feel free people to chime in and ask questions. I'll start by asking a question. So I have my special birds, and they live in a small outdoor aviary. Charlie is one of them, so she's blind. And the behavior question comes into play here because her husband can be very bossy, and he doesn't have a lot of out of cage time. He's a very nervous bird, so he doesn't really like to come out of his cage. And Charlie gets sort of, she gets bussed around a lot sometimes. And I'm wondering what I can do for that husband, that what we call, was it bored husband syndrome?
Underemployed.
Underemployed husband. Yes. Hava, do you have any ideas? Or I'll let anyone want to raise their hand and answer.
Yeah, I think I want to go last on this one because
Oh, okay.
this is such a challenging question that I hear so often that I have my set list of replies, but I'm really excited to build on those from hearing from Blanca and Jill.
Okay.
Well, maybe Hava's going to agree with me because yeah, we have this question very often with some bossy husbands. We always recommend mirrors so they can start fighting, chatting and cooing and fighting, spending energy with themselves in the mirror, in the cage, or a plush toy, any kind. It could be a pigeon plush toy or a smaller plush toy. And bells, I found good help with bells, like parrot bells. I have some birds that when they have this burst of energy, they start just ringing and ringing and ringing the bells like in a boxing ring.
Okay.
And
Okay.
you just need to be used to the sound, because then the bells is like the ice cream truck is coming all the time, with the bells ringing.
Okay. Okay.
But that's the thing I can think of. I don't know, Hava, if you want to add something else.
Jill, you got anything?
I would say give them each a break from each other and do what you're doing right now. And I know that Boomer, because I had Boomer for a while at my house. I think I think since he lost his eyesight in that one eye, that's when he became a little more
He's skittish.
He wasn't that way when I had him.
Mm-hmm. Well, it could be a different environment for him because he's not around a lot of other birds, so he doesn't have a lot of like, where's my flock kind of anxiety, perhaps. But I know that he doesn't particularly like being around me so much. He certainly doesn't like hands, but I've started introducing him to this concept, step up onto the cloth.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly the timeout seemed to work a little bit. He has a mirror. I've tried a plush toy on him. I'll try a different plush toy. I'll try and get an actual pigeon plush toy, and I'll try the bells. I have not tried the bells yet. I've tried a cat toy before, a thing that rolls around on the ground with a bell in it, but he's not been interested in that. So this is very interesting. This also sort of informs another question that we have about enrichment. So this is good.
Ellie, can I just add something?
Yeah.
I would consider if he doesn't like to interact with you, which I think you could change that, because I do it all the time. Daisy Jesus was very, very fractious when I got her. And I'm talking to her a lot, and now she's eating out of my hand. And I posted another video of our progress in our group. So I think holding is okay, even if they don't like it. They eventually realize it's okay, and then I kind of push their boundaries a little bit, and I've had really a lot of success with that. But if you don't feel comfortable with that, put pants on him and let him, while you're working or whatever in your space, just let him do his own thing in the room there and sort of, let off some energy and steam and whatnot, and it separate them just to give him something to do.
Right. I do bring him into my space. I don't do it on a consistent basis though. And I do hold him, but I don't hold him on a consistent basis. And so perhaps the key is frequency and consistency, would you say? So if I want
I-
to hold him, it needs to be frequent and consistent.
Yeah, I think how I do it is frequency and consistency.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like desensitizing them and them realize, like Daisy, you know, would climb the sides of the cage when I would come around.
Yeah.
Now she calls to me from, you know, when I'm doing stuff around the house.
Mhm.
I can put my hands in there and she's eating out of my hand. So,
Mhm.
and so what I'm doing is, you know, when I'm home and I can, every time I go there, I give her a couple more safflower seeds. I get her used to my hand. I talk to her. I make eye contact, you know,
Yeah.
and it's a consistent sort of thing.
Right.
Because pigeons can backtrack if you sort of, they can kind of.
He's always been this way with me, I will
Okay.
say. So yes, hang on a sec. So he hates my hands.
Mhm,
So I am trying to play fight with him.
mhm.
I don't know if that's going well or not, or if he's just fighting. You know, I don't know if he's play fighting or fighting. So that's why I've been introducing this to get him to, you know, so that I can pick him up and cuddle him without him seeing hands. I don't know. Do you think that's a good idea or?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's all a good idea. I think everything you're saying, I would try. I would put a sock over my hand and
Oh,
see.
that's a good idea. Yeah, so they look more like, oh, that's a thought. Yes, we don't see that. Yeah,
Right.
that's a good
So
idea.
he's not really fighting your hand. He's fighting the sock enemy, whoever that, you
Oh,
know,
okay.
with a plush.
Or vice versa, fight the hand, but not the sock.
Yeah, I mean, you just
Oh,
get, it's all
okay.
trial and error with, and everybody's different. Every
Mhm.
pigeon different, and I've, you know, I
Well,
mean, but
it
I do,
makes sense to be consistent and do it, you
right.
know,
I
so
do
often
find
that they
that
can
right.
learn.
They can backslide. You
Mhm.
could, like, I've had pigeons that have been in the house for extended periods of time, medical cases that I've interacted with, and then that are friendly and fly to me and do nesty legs on me and
Mhm.
you know all of that, and then I get them in the aviary, and if I'm not consistent with you know hands-on or maintaining that relationship, they kind of wild up a little bit,
Okay.
and so I think consistency is key with them,
Okay, Hava?
especially when they're married too, because that mate becomes, you know, their prime focus.
Yeah, right. Hava?
So now that I've selfishly had the luxury of hearing from everyone else, know what, I'm really excited. Thank you, Blanca and Jill. I now have new things to add to my list with which I can help adopters. So that's really awesome. And then the only other thing that I was going to add is I completely agree with Jill about the importance of giving them both breaks. And I think the key, right, because even those of us in the most loving of relationships need some independent time to ourselves, right? And we all need to do our own thing too. And I think, you know what, when I heard that he's not having a lot of out of cage time because he's anxious, so Charlie is getting to go and do her own thing, and then he is probably staying in this self-reinforcing cycle where he's anxious, but he's not getting out of his comfort zone. And then she just keeps coming back into his comfort zone. And he's like, the one other being that I have to interact with, like, blah, and everything's getting focused on her. So I think he probably does consistently need
That's
to
a good point.
come out of his comfort zone. And
They do often come out together into my space. So if I bring him out, they'll probably come here in together. That I think helps him a little bit to know that he's got his mate with him, rather than him being here by himself. Sometimes I have him here by myself. Do you think there's any like better way to do it? Like he should be with me by himself, or they should all be together?
yeah, I would give them, I would do both, right?
Right. Yeah.
Time out together is always great. And then, you know, just as consistently as you're giving Charlie the independent time, having a little outing, I would give him the independent time, having a little outing. And
So I could even, rather than just having them be in my room, I could put them in my carrier and I can take them for a little walk together.
yes, that would be amazing. Yes.
Okay, great.
I love that idea. I'm gonna
Cool.
add that to my list of suggestions. Thank you, Ellie.
Okay. Ren, you had raised your hand and I don't know if you're off mute. Where is Ren?
I'm good.
Oh, you're good. Okay. All right. Great. So let's see, that's covering our first bird behavior question. If anybody has any specific questions about bird behavior, if not, we could go into sort of what's typical bird behaviors that we see, what are unusual bird behaviors that we see, things that we might need to be concerned about with bird behavior. Any thoughts about on the panel who want to talk about what are some typical bird behaviors?
Ellie?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I just want, probably it's still related. Want to add something to your previous topic question. I noticed that sometimes with couples, the male gets very anxious or jealous when we are paying more attention to the girl. I don't know if that could be your case or no, especially because your girl is blind. So it's totally normal that you're more focused on her. So even if the bird is totally normal, I notice that with my personal birds, foster couples, that if I'm paying attention to the girl and then I return her back to him, he's beating her up. Like, where were you? Like, why were you doing with that lady? You are my wife. You should be here. You know, they're that kind, like a little macho thing. So that could be it too. I think that's normal. But what I try to do is like every time I was grabbing them, I grab the girl first. I do, you know, I spend time with her and then immediately after to him. So then he's the last one to come back to the cage. And she's not gonna ever argue with him about him being out of the house, but he will do with her. So he should be the last one to come because then he will come like, oh, okay, I came from the party, you know, from anywhere. I noticed that it's like they're very possessive with the girls, most of them. So maybe that could be it too. So always do your first, do your quality time with her first, and then immediately after do it with him, and let's see that change too.
I
Like,
see.
okay, I also have my spare time, and now he will settle a little.
Oh, okay. All right. Amalia, you have a question? You have your hand up. Hi.
Yes, hi. I have a question. Mainly, I know Pigeon, so I'm not like it's not quite so out of the blue, but I wanted to get some new ideas on it anyway. I have two fosters. They're a pair. They do really, really well together. They love each other. But they're incredibly anxious just with me. They're fine with me walking around, but as soon as I handle them, like putting pants on them, they flip out, and to the point where like they're hurting themselves because they are quite literally tumbling head over heels and like panting and just they're also molting, so they're sending feathers everywhere, and it just looks like this whole fight is happening just to put pants on and then also to take them off. Any handling, they just flip out. They're completely fine with me being in the room, with me being around them. I clean all the time, like they're fine. But as soon as it comes time to be handled, like to be held, they just like, I mean, they lose their minds completely. And I've tried just covering their heads a little bit so they're not panicking quite as much. But that works for all of like 2 seconds until they figure out it's my hand and not some blanket of death. And they freak out again.
Do we have anything more to add about anxious birds and how to help desensitize them to hands? Amalia, were you here when we were talking about using socks on your hands instead of your hands?
No. Well, the thing is, they're not afraid of hands. They slap my hand, all of that. They're not afraid of my hands.
Right.
They don't like being held.
Don't like being held.
It's not a, that's why like I have no trouble desensitizing them. They are
Got
a
it.
really great teenage couple. Like they smack my hand all the time. They bite me.
Okay.
And I have one is up in the window up there, and this is even before they were molting extremely, and this is not even like I mean, Helios right here is molting and she's being fine. They do have eggs right now, but again, they have no trouble being sassy and fighting me or doing anything. It's literally just handling them. And even doing that, like even if I again do anything slow, try doing it as calmly as possible, all of that, everything I've done previously with other pigeons, they just lose their minds.
Jill, I want you to chime in here because you have a method of calming birds that's pretty remarkable. And, I just think of you just basically sort of powering the birds through their resistance until they finally realize that, I don't know, you have a special touch. Right?
I do. I mean, I do. I just.
You hold them and you hold them and you coo at them and
I do.
until they just finally melt.
I do, and I do it frequently, and I do it consistently. So
yeah,
every time.
Oop, we lost you. I lost hearing. Can't hear you. Sorry, folks. Oh, I think we might have lost Jill for a second there.
Okay, I'm here.
Gotcha. Okay, great.
Every once in a while, it says my connection is unstable, so but I do it consistently and I do it often, and they live through it, and then I do it again and I do it again, and I pouch them, and I just.
Can you give an example of like how many times before you see some sort of result? Like, could you say like 4 sessions of 15 minutes, you would see some sort of result? I know it depends on the bird, but just like if we give Amalia some sort of like try 8 sessions of 15 minutes each.
Yeah, I mean, not
something
even
like
15 minutes, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And scritch around their neck and get those endorphins and good chemicals flowing, and put them down, and then pick them up in another hour, and do it for 2 minutes that time. And
good idea. Yeah.
There's sometimes when I just carry them around the house with me while I'm doing stuff, and I've put them in a fanny pack before with their heads, and they're living there. I put them back, and every single time they're just a little more bold with me. Can you hear Daisy? She's talking to me. And I just hold. I just don't. I want to power through their skittishness, my philosophy is these guys, whether they're unreleasable ferals or domestics, they have to be around us the rest of their lives. They have to get used to it. And, and of course my aviary birds they're all a little different. The ones that are inside with me, I tend to hold them more and get them more comfortable because I know they have to be around me. I want them to talk to me. Even if they don't, it's like, so Molly, with your birds, if they don't want to be held, I wouldn't hold them. If they're comfortable enough to tell you off while you're in there, that's good. That's a confident pigeon that's not afraid of you.
Well, the problem is that they have to wear pants. So unfortunately, like the situation I'm in is quite limited. This is my bedroom. And it has carpeting. So the only way for them to be out is in pants. And I'm just trying to make it the most comfortable they can be. I know that they're probably just not going to be, they just don't like being held, and that's fine. I'm completely fine with that. it's just a matter of like making sure that they feel safe when they do have to wear pants, because that is the only way that I can be sure to let them fly around. And
So
Okay, so there's a few questions coming up, so I just want to make sure we're gonna get to everybody. But I did want to say something about pants. I have heard that if you introduce the bird to the pants slowly, like in their space, without it being on them, that they may take to it a little bit better.
well, I mean, but the problem is it's not the pants. Like, this is the male up in the, well, he disappeared. He's in the window. He naps up there. They fly around. They're completely comfortable in the pants.
Oh, they're in the pants.
It-
Okay.
It's specifically being held that is
Sure.
the problem. It's not the pants. And the other problem is that they just projectile poop all over me every time I put them on.
Right.
And when they're on eggs, so you can imagine how brutal
Yeah.
that is.
So I
Um,
actually have a thought about that, but first, Ellie, can I ask a logistical question?
Yes.
I noticed that we have 2 people with hands raised, and I was just wondering if they had hands raised because they wanted to get in queue for questions, or if they wanted to chime in on this discussion, and I defer to everyone on how that works. I was just being hyper and wanting to.
Yeah, folks who are raising their hand, feel free to chime in. You just have to unmute yourself.
Thanks
Okay,
for the
sorry about that.
thanks. I didn't want to jump in. I just had my name's Carrie, and this is my first dove. I'm a rehabber. I rehab birds of prey for 13 years, and I've done hundreds of squirrels for over 10 years. I know very little about doves, but is it Amelia?
Amalia.
Amalia.
I'm sorry. One thing that you said just clued me in. For many birds, it's extremely painful to molt. Could it be that they're reacting worse to your handling in the pigeon pants because they're during a molt and it won't be so bad at other times?
It is entirely possible. I mean, I just got them about a week and a half ago. They were pulled from the shelter, and supposedly they've been around people, for a while. And it could be that they're just very nervous coming from the shelter. So I did give them quite a bit of time. They had to go through quarantine and relax and everything. And I do see progress. I do see them being a little less skittish each day and stuff like that. But again, they are, as a pair, just quite confident, and it is sort of strange for them to be so reactive to being held compared to how.
But that might end
they
once they stop
Yeah.
molting, is my point. That's a variable, that's a significant variable there, that might end
Yeah.
when they stop molting, because it's painful. It's also dangerous to be
It-
fighting a flapping bird in molt.
But the molt actually might be an advantage because you can help scratch those feathers, those pin feathers out, which will make them feel good.
That's what I'm doing with her.
That's a
She was-
strategy we use for pigeons and doves.
That's
a
what I was
great
doing with
point.
her. She's been skittish ever since she came back from her vacation,
Oh, oh.
and now you can see she's turning back into the love bug that she was before.
So does
Um,
that does this help you at all? Have you got some pointers?
Absolutely,
That
yeah.
this
I mean, I'm just going to continue working with them. I
Just
think
continue. Yeah, don't get
I think
discouraged.
I think they are
Yeah.
still quite new to my house and being here, so I think
Mhm.
it will be a work in progress, but I am seeing them making progress. They are very food motivated, and they are generally like teenage age, so they're pretty sassy and pretty confident with themselves. And I think they're doing quite well.
Molly, I do want to jump in really quickly with regards to the nest poop that, right, you take them out and try and put their pants on, and then they're just pooping explosively all over you and everything, because I think we've all been there. And relatively recently, I discovered, and I should have discovered this a long time ago because pigeons are brilliant. Hi, Ashley. I get excited every time a new person logs on. Pigeons are brilliant that before in the morning, when all of the pigeons in our house are getting dressed for the morning, what I do now is, instead of immediately putting their pants on, I set down a puppy pad in front of their enclosure, or if they will hold it long enough, carry them into the bathroom and set them
Oh yeah,
down
she's
in the
not holding. She's
bathtub.
not gonna hold it
Yeah.
long enough.
So in that case, like pad in front of their enclosure, and before I put their pants down, I set them down. And I know that sounds impossible with fractious birds, but I find they will poop even if I just, like to demonstrate with Bailey, who is the opposite of a fractious bird, even if I just set them down on the puppy pad and I'm literally like doing this over them so that they don't have the opportunity to fly off. And somehow the second their feet touch the ground outside of their nest, then they will just poop everywhere and get that out of the way. And then I can put their pants on without, you know, poop happening in the.
Well, that was going to be my next sort of foray into pigeon pants, would be controlling the poop. Because I'm finding, even with new tricks for Helios, this is Helios with her big fantail, she is explosively pooping outside of her fliper. And I mean explosively, like a dog marking her territory, like spraying up the back of the cage. I've had her on probiotics for several days now. She is not sick. She's been, you know, she's been treated for everything. She's healthy, active, eating, drinking, all of that. But she is literally marking her territory as she walks around with like a spray of poop. And it is getting to the point where I'm like, I can't, like, she has, so right now she's wearing pigeon pants, and then she also gets, the fliper goes up farther. So like I make sure the liner sits up to like about here. So it's pretty far up her tail, and she still manages to poop outside of her fliper.
Right.
And I'm not
I wonder
sure.
if her fliper is too small, maybe?
She's tried different sizes. We got fantail flipers specifically for her, and it is still not working. And I don't know what's going on, because she wasn't like this before, but she's literally spraying poop everywhere, even with the probiotics, and it's like liquidy, which sounds completely gross, and I'm really sorry.
I wonder if we can just put this question to a little bit later in the call, so that I can get on to some other questions that folks are asking. And
I actually have to get going.
Come back.
I'm
Okay.
volunteering at a rehab, but
Well, let's tackle this now then. Let's tackle this now then, since you have to go. So watery poop, you're saying, though, is it always watery poop, or is it only when she's first in the morning?
Oh no, this is all the time. This is like I open her crate and it's up the sides of the crate.
Well, I'm wondering if this is maybe a medical issue.
She could just have polyuria. I mean, consistent watery poop.
Just consistent watery poop.
She didn't have it before then. That's the thing.
But
like she was before we traveled, she was like, it was completely normal. And
yeah,
then
I would say probably a fecal and a doctor's visit.
And these are fosters, right?
She's mine. She's actually
okay.
My pigeon. And she stayed with Hava for about 2 or 3 weeks until she lost her mind and had to leave.
She is very reactive to male pigeons, and we are the pigeon equivalent of a bachelor pad over here. And Helios was overstimulated.
How long ago was this? Sorry, I'm sorry if you already said that, but
yeah, no, I think that's a good
She
point.
was with you for, that was like I think it was 2 weeks ago, because she went to my friend Aya, who has only one male pigeon, and he's already paired off with another. He's very loyal, so she had no problems with him. And currently none of the boys here flirt with her, and I think she's done really, really well. She's been living alongside my single pigeon Ringo for the past several months, and did really, really well until she traveled and stayed with Hava and had all the stress.
So could you, so you're giving her probiotics now, since her travel, right?
Yeah, she's been on probiotics. Previously, they did really, really well for her, and that's the same for all of my others. They've been doing well.
And it's been 2 weeks though.
Yeah.
And I see Blanca.
Yeah, Blanca, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, Mali, I have some insights in this, because I experienced the same with one of my girls. I even thought she was diabetic because her water intake was extremely high. But no, everything was okay. She was just very hormonal. And it makes totally sense to me that she came from Hava being like that, because Hava has all these handsome boys in her house. I'm pretty sure she liked more than one of those boys. And I really think what's going on with her, she's hormonal. And not because you have males at home, maybe she doesn't really like the males you have right now. Maybe they are not as attracted to her as Hava's boys. So I'm sure she's in love with someone over there, Jonah, or who knows. And for me, that sounds like a very hormonal poop, and that can last 2-3 weeks, because Penelope, one of my girls, she has those cycles too. And then when she lays the eggs, she's totally back to normal. She sits on the eggs. She doesn't have a husband, but she's hormonal with me. But it's like a cycle for her. So every 2 months we deal with really watery poop, and then she settles down. She has beautiful, round, solid poops. So that's the only thing I can think of, because it sounds like everything you're doing, it's fine, and the bird seems to be healthy. Unless that you want to, like somebody, I don't remember who, I'm sorry, who said you should take it to the vet and run a fecal for her to make sure everything is okay. But yeah, it could be hormonal.
Or maybe you
really
wait a week or two to see whether it resolves, and if it doesn't, then go to the vet at that point.
Her behavior has definitely changed too.
Yeah.
She's definitely a little bit more skittish now.
Mhm.
She was very, very tame. And then after all of the sort of hormonal outbreak, she's been a little bit more skittish. I've had to basically reintroduce myself to her.
Oh.
I'm not seeing any of the hormonal behaviors she was showing to me before she left. And even now with everyone I have here, there's no hormonal behaviors. The only behavior that has changed has been the poop. And then the only like physical change has been the poop. So she's just a weirdo.
Jill, do you strongly think that she should go see a vet now, or do you think could do a watch and wait for 2 weeks and see if it resolves?
Well, she hasn't displayed any worrying, like she hasn't, nothing else has really changed. Like she's not, she's eating and drinking fine. She is flying. She's, behaving completely normally. So honestly, I'm not overly concerned yet that it's something wrong. If it continues, I mean, she just came back to me a week ago. So if this behavior continues for even longer and there's no change, like she doesn't lay an egg, she doesn't do anything else, then I would be concerned. But right now, I mean, it could just be a result. I've been thinking it's just a result from the stress. It's just gone on for a few more days than I would prefer.
I like the idea of the hormones raging, and it could be that it's, it's not oxytocin raging, it's testosterone raging. There could be weird hormones going on, which is causing her to raise up her fantail and spray that poop, right?
Yeah.
So she might not be displaying typical nesty behavior, but but it still could be raging hormones of one type or another, or a combo.
It's just a weirdo. I don't know anymore. She's like a species.
I think you should let us know on the Facebook help group in a week, let us know how it's going.
Yeah, well, I'm one of the mods there. So
I didn't know that. Oh, okay.
I just like asking questions and talking to everybody anyway.
No, that's great.
Molly, with regard to your two other ones, your two fosters that don't like to be handled to have pigeon pants put on them, but they're okay after. I don't think a week and a half is that long for them to be used to that routine. So I would give them lots more time. And if they're fine once their pants step, I think just give them more time and they'll be fine with the routine. I mean, they're not going to probably like it. Nobody likes to get dressed. None of us do. But once they're dressed and they're out and about, they're fine, right?
Yeah. So, well, it's been a tough routine for them because they're not, especially the male has not been taking his turns on the eggs as he should be. And so there is quite a little bit of a big change for them
Yeah.
because she in particular does not like the pants. And I don't mean the pants on her, I mean the pants on her husband. And so every time he walks by, she attacks him, but doesn't attack him in general, just attacks his butt. She doesn't like his fliper and will pull him backwards by the fliper, trying to get it off of him. So it's been a definite change for them.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's probably right that their routine is just very disrupted at the moment.
Yeah, and it's only been a week and a half. So I think that's, you know, in pigeon time, I found that they really need a long time to acclimate to things, more so than other animals.
Well, this creature does not. She moves on in like 2 seconds. She's like, you're gone. Okay, bye. I'll just move on to the next one.
Let me move the conversation along.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna go because I have to go.
Okay. Thank you. Kari, I think
Hey.
you had Kari, you had your hand up, but I think you already were.
I had a number 5, Dimitri. Yes, I had a question. I thank you for including me in this group. As I said, I'm completely new to doves and pigeons, and I didn't find any helpful information until I found y'all's website and Facebook group online. So thank you so much for that. And I've learned so much already. This was a wild baby that a vet was trying to rehab and gave to me because I'm a licensed rehabber, and it had already imprinted on people, so it's not releasable. So I'm learning. So I joined today just to learn and hear a lot, and I already am. Thank you. I just had a quick question about, mine is about 2 months old now, about sounds as they're growing up. He started a really weird noise about 3 days ago, and I just wondered if that was normal. And that's not something I could find anywhere on the website or the Facebook page or in the books. So, and of course he's not making it right now.
Right.
Or ask.
I wonder if you can, when the time is optimal, you can take a quick video on your phone and post it on the help group page. But yeah, Hava, go ahead.
Yes. Did you mention that he's right there with you? Is he there with you, or
He is.
Is it possible to see how old he is? Because so I like to jokingly say that the pigeon, is that him?
He's about 2 months old because
Yeah.
I got him when he was about 7 to 10 days was our best guess.
So I defer to Jill on the age milestones for dove voice changes, but I like
but
to say
don't their
that-
voices change like teenagers?
Yes, I like to say
That is true.
Uh-huh.
That was my husband's guess. That really is true.
First they are squeakers, they are squonkers,
Squawkers.
and they are honkers, then they are honkers, and then finally they're cooers.
Oh my God.
Squawkers.
Now,
I
see,
have to
I
write this
couldn't
down.
find that on any website anywhere. And that if everybody does that, you would think I could. Thank you. That's the whole reason I joined here. Things I couldn't read online. Thank you. That's so good to know.
Hava, what did you say? Squeakers, squonkers, honkers?
Honkers and coors. Yes.
Honkers.
I'm so delighted that was useful.
That is so
Oh my
cute.
That's
gosh.
an awesome description. Thank you.
Squonkers.
Maybe I'll put that on a t-shirt.
Absolutely.
Yes, we need
I'm
that.
going to mute myself and enjoy listening and learning why I do something else. But thank
Okay.
you everyone for helping
Great
me out.
question.
Thank you.
Diane, you wanted to ask a question.
I do. I have a question in regards to behavior of 2 pigeons. 2.5 years ago, we had a roller show up on our front door. And we thought he was a he. He was very dominant male behavior. And so I decided last fall to get him a mate. And so we adopted Mama Owl from Great Lakes. And they were, buds. They were buds. And, one would lay and one would lay next to each other and, that type of thing. About December, we noticed that he was really beating, we call her Sova now, Sova up. Beyond beating her up, just not wanting her anywhere. He would get her midair. He just gone, just didn't want her around. Well, we found out just a week ago that our little boy now is a little girl. So she laid an egg. So now I'm dealing with 2 females. My first question is, they are both bonded to me. I am each one of their mates, and we basically live separate lives. And the other question that I have, well, the question around that is, we're making it work. It works fine. We have a home where we're able to have different rooms and stuff. But my other question is, what could have caused that behavior from them being, cordial and laying around, they were never mated. They were never bonded to the point that they're just hostile to each other. And then, is this situation ideal? Is there anything that could, potentially happen with, me being the bonded mate to each one of these separate pigeons?
My first reaction is that it's jealousy.
Yeah.
But if you introduced a male, one of them might want to get married to the male, and then you would solve that problem. But then you would have the problem of fertile eggs, right? But that's definitely a manageable problem.
But now that we found out that they're 2 females,
right?
Yeah. But I don't know what it was, that particular moment or time that would have caused them to just absolutely fight. It's hostile.
They can hurt each other, so it's definitely something you want to work on too.
And then with Mama Owl, when we got her, now Sova, she does have that bad leg, so it's not fair to put Lenny anywhere near her that he could hurt her, because she's off, she can get off balance really quick. But it just changed almost overnight that they went from, like I said, kind of hanging out, taking baths together, kind of doing that thing, to just total and utter get out of my, I don't want to see you.
They've divorced.
I think it's very telling that, first of all, I'm so excited to meet you virtually.
Yeah.
You're such an amazing pigeon mom. Blanca, this is Diane is the pigeon mom for Mama Owl, who she adopted.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I would have her up here, but she's going through a very bad molt, and I just want to keep her calm and where she's at right now.
So I think it's very telling that this episode of sudden switch to aggressive behavior happened relatively close in proximity to when she then laid an egg and revealed herself as a female. So
actually, no, it didn't. This happened in December, and we couldn't figure out what, because I noticed that Sova was losing a little bit of weight, but yet when she was around me, she was happy, she was eating, and it was because she was stressed, because I didn't know that Lenny was just pecking at her and, being so mean to her. Lenny didn't lay an egg until last Sunday. So we didn't know. Yeah, we didn't know that it was female.
So is it just basically Lenny is pecking on your other bird, or is it vice versa?
Well, yeah, she will do it too. Sova will do it in retaliation to Lenny. But it's at the point now where if we have them in a room, Sova will come right up to me and curl up to me, so she doesn't have to deal with Lenny.
Yeah. So I also, another thought is that they are married and Lenny is driving her.
Yeah.
Like what a typical male would do, even though they're both females. It's possible. So maybe they aren't divorced. Maybe she wants to get a divorce because he's being such a pain in the butt. It's it's hard to tease apart.
Have you ever seen
Blanca.
Have you ever seen them preen each other?
No.
Okay.
No,
Okay,
and
well,
in fact, when Lenny came here, we knew that he was a very young I'm sorry, it's 2 years now. I have to switch to that.
Yeah.
She was a very young bird. And so she did learn a lot from Mama Silva. I could watch Lenny watch her and start to do kind of the things that Silva does. So how it just like almost like that just changed.
Hormones.
All that
Something going on, yeah.
There's hormones.
Blanca?
Yes, well, I had a similar experience with two boys. I call them my gay couple. They are adorable, but they have had situations over in a time frame of 3 years that they married, they divorced, they married, they divorced, and I definitely think it's the hormonal thing. They both cuddle and kiss and love each other. Then they were biting to each other really bad, at the point that I got to put a divider in the cage. And then that was the first step, putting a divider. They can still see each other because they were cuddling from, side to side through the bars. But then they got a really bad fight and I got to put them in different cages. They were missing each other. Well, they're in a timeout. I told them during that timeout, because you cannot live together. And then giving them, again, free time together. They reencounter. It was an upside down thing. Finally, one of them decided he doesn't want to be gay anymore. He really wants a girl. And he married a girl. So, but that was, interestingly enough, that was the submissive one. So I don't know if in your case, kind of like what Ellie was saying, that maybe the one that is running, like driving the relationship, is the one that really wants a female relationship, and the other one, Mama Owl, it's the one that is like, well, no, I used to probably have a boy, a husband, and maybe he really wants a husband, or they both want you, but independently. Maybe they don't need to stay together anymore.
Yeah, the idea of the clear dividers is really nice, because then you can see their behavior and they're safe, and you can sort of tell, really, you could get a better sense of what's going on. Yeah, but if they don't ever preen each other, that's interesting. It sounds more like jealousy, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah, and then
but we're coming sort of circling back to my first question, which was about bored husband syndrome, right? And all those things that we suggested. And one of the big things was having them both take a break from each other. So not only does I can't remember the name of the girl with the leg problem.
Silva.
Not only giving her a break, but then giving Lenny a break as well from Silva. So give them both a break. And that clear partition might be a good idea, or just, taking one out and being with you one at a time.
Yeah, that's kind of what I do now. They're in the cages, they're on top of each other. One's on top, one's on bottom. No issues with that. Doesn't stress them out. They're fine. Yeah. And I do that. One's in the cage. Lenny's on the egg now. Silva's, and so I guess that was the second part. I find there's no issue with this kind of how this relationship is. So is there anything bad that, you know what I mean? Is living separate lives?
I have had doves. I have had a dove be deceased because of another dove. So that has happened, and unexpectedly so. They were fighting. I thought everything would be okay. And then it wasn't.
I don't mean ever together. I would never, ever do that. But I mean, as far as how our situation is now, being a mate myself to both of them separately, that's just kind of how we live, and everybody's happy. And, but I would love for them to somehow bond and to have that, companion.
A male might be a nice idea. Maybe they'll all get married together.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. That maybe it would be good to introduce a male, into the mix.
You might be able to foster one. See, that's always ideal, right? It's to foster first.
Yeah.
Ava?
I think to specifically answer your question, when you were asking, I think I heard you say, is it okay for them to live separate lives? And
with me as their mate.
So I think it's definitely okay to have 2 single pigeons, you know, in your home, as long as they have separate cages, so that they don't feel like they're being forced to share a bedroom with someone that they're not in a relationship with. And, you know, you can supervise if they're having out of cage time in the same room, so you can break up any fights or anything like that. I mean, it's my husband and I, several of our pigeon family members are single birds, and they coexist, you know, as buddies, as sparring partners, as siblings during out of cage time. And then they have their own, you know, preferred zones in the house and preferred cages. And and that's totally, I think that's certainly fine if that is what you feel is best for you and the birds. If you feel like the birds really would like a mate, then I agree with Ellie that introducing at least one male is probably the best solution, because, you know, if you try, and my husband has had birds fighting over him, and it gets my friend Ashley, who's logged on right now, has witnessed 4 pigeons simultaneously fighting over who gets to snuggle with and be held by and sit on him, and it can get chaotic and overwhelming. So, you know, perhaps one of your lady pigeons wants to stay bonded with you, and one of them really would like a male mate. So if that's doable for you, that would be ideal. But sometimes I have people saying, I accidentally wound up with these 2 birds who are of the same sex, and they are absolutely single, and I just can't take on another bird. What do I do? And I'm like, they'll be fine.
We've got a really good thing going now. It's just, I just was curious to see why all of a sudden there was just that shift of now just nothing. They just don't want to even to see each other. So yeah, okay. Yeah, but everybody's doing great.
I think I agree with Jill when Jill said hormones, you know, especially when you described that your first pigeon is younger, right? I think your first pigeon may have just reached a point in her life where she started, right? It was about 6 months before she laid an egg, where she started to mature and suddenly wants, you know, boyfriend. And like, hey, you're not the boyfriend that I was looking for.
I do want to raise one other possibility, that birds can see illness in other birds before we can. So I would want to be cognizant of that, you know, just to be looking carefully for that. You know, they see things we don't see. And if it's something that started suddenly, you know, that could be it. So I would
Jenna actually had told me that it could also be the fact that in a flock mentality, Lenny may see Sova as like an injured with her arthritis in her leg, that she could be the slow one in the flock and tries to.
Yeah, I mean, but it just started suddenly, right? It didn't, Lenny didn't always see her that way.
Well, in the beginning, she was very curious of her, wanted to know, would kind of mimic her, would do this, and then all of a sudden, just didn't want anything to do with her. And, you know, I've been to the vet, Sova's fine. She's, you know, beautiful. There's nothing, you know, she's doing very well and stuff. So,
it could be a maturity thing.
Maturity,
you know?
and probably jealousy of me, and the, you know, but the hormone thing makes so much sense now.
Yeah. Blanca?
Yes. Yeah, no, it was basically that the age difference could be that too. And just one suggestion, you have the space in your house, or that you can put the cages next to each other instead of on top. I really suggest that, because I have 2 imprinted girls that they are imprinted with me. I have the same problem, and they actually fine now. They don't fight anymore over me. They both have their space, their time with me. But when I'm not home, and I'm saying this because we have a camera for them to see what they're doing, they really enjoy to spend time with each other. They are always close by. They look at each other. They eat at the same time. So it's nice to see that they get along even when we're not home, so they don't feel lonely. So they are friends, and they do everything together. And once we're home, they are loose, and they don't have any issues with that. And they both have my time, but it's nice to see that they can talk while you're not home. So maybe it's also better for them, because then by the time you let them out, at the same time, they don't see themselves like strangers, because they never get to see each other, because they
that's a really, really good point. And maybe I should try to separate myself a little bit too. So, but that's a really good point, that's all they see would be each other during the day. And then, So.
And maybe have the cages. I don't know if those are like the typical dog cages, or, I mean, close enough, but not that close that if one is pulling their head through, through the bars to the other, so they cannot reach each other, but they can see each other, and they can do, and maybe the footballs like close, like on the same side, so they can interact with each other.
Okay, wonderful. That's perfect.
Okay, good. We have another question, and she's been waiting a long time. Hang on a second. In the chat, Natalie. So Natalie says she rescued a German owl. So she's in quarantine, wants to know how to get her to warm up. Still won't eat from her hand. Given her some pets, but I get an angry coo and some beak fighting. So I think we're back to, again, the first thing we were talking about, which was Jill was talking about basically forcing them through their reluctance period, right? And sort of trying to activate their endorphins by you do a hold and you scritch them for a little bit. You do that for 2 minutes and then you let them go. And then an hour later, you do it for 5 minutes. And it's a question of being basically you have to be the one in control, right? So you're holding the bird, and maybe they don't like it, but you do it frequently and consistently. And that's how you get their endorphins going, and their endorphins are going to overcome those other hormones that are making them be, reluctant to bond. I don't know what other folks have to say. Yes.
Natalie, I was wondering if you would mind sharing how long first of all, thank you for rescuing her. That's amazing. And if you would mind sharing how long she's been with you, because I think that is going to inform how I share thoughts.
So she says she just rescued, but I'll let her chime in.
Yeah, I would say, hi Java. This is, I'm like an honorary member of Great Lakes Pigeon. I've passed a lot of ferals on to Andrea. So
Yes, I'm so excited to hear your voice.
Yep,
I was probably muted when I was saying excitedly, oh, I see Natalie here.
Yep. I would say it was maybe about 3 weeks ago at this point. And yeah, like I've got other birds, so I know to keep her, who knows, separate. But yeah, a lot of just trying to do like the hand in the cage with some of the seeds in the morning. I've gotten a couple pecks from the hand, but not consistently. Same thing with like the dish of seeds, a little more consistency with the dish. We also just moved apartments, so there's a little bit of new environment going on, and haven't been able to just sit with this pigeon and be around them as much as I would if things were a little bit more normal around here. But yeah, it's more about like getting them to the point where they can be put in pants and have free flight time. Like I said in the chat, let them out in the bathroom where, you can clean up easy and get a bath. And she just sat on the shower rod for hours until it got dark and I could put her back into the crate. So yeah, but only like 3 weeks.
Can I ask a stupid question? Are you feeding her safflower seeds as treats in your hand?
The seed mix I have has safflower in them. I originally had just like a regular pigeon mix, but I was noticing she was not eating the peas and the corn, and I assumed it was because
mine never eat peas and corn either.
Yeah, I mean, some The ferals love peas and corn. It's the
They'll eat
first thing they go
anything.
to, but I think with her short beak, I was assuming that that was a little too much for her, so I switched to a dove mix that has the safflowers in it. Are you suggesting just getting like a pure safflower as
Yeah.
a treat? Okay.
Yeah, it's a bribe. Ren, you wanted to chime in?
Yeah, I guess this is a slightly different take. And I guess just as someone who has dealt with a lot more ferals than I have domestic birds, I feel like with birds, I end up going one and two routes, where there is either the kind of the kill 'em with kindness kind of route, where you kind of just, make them overcome it.
Right.
Personally, I found that to work a lot better with domestic birds, but with the feral birds, I've had some birds that just, it doesn't happen with.
Mhm.
And I found with those ones, usually what ends up being best is like trying to respect their boundaries and develop like a rapport with them, if that makes sense. So like I'll have feral birds that don't want me to touch them, but they know when it's time to come out. They know when it's time to get pants on. They go home when they're supposed to go home. They don't want me to touch them, but like they know what's going on. They know I'm not there to hurt them.
Mhm.
And often over time, which is obviously not always a luxury we have, but they get to a point where they get more comfortable with me and they know like, hey, this isn't someone who's going to hurt me. This isn't something that's going to happen like that. I guess I just wanted to say something because I feel like particularly with ferals, there are sometimes that the killing them with kindness thing just doesn't work. For me, at least.
So I think Ren, you make a really, really important point, and it's interesting to hear your observations with regards to breed, because I've had similar experience with regards to personality, but almost the opposite experience with regards to breed. So that's really interesting. So I do think that just like with us humans, all pigeons have a very vast range of behaviors. And for sure, every pigeon can learn to accept, the fact of I have to be picked up in the morning to have my pants put on, because just like Jill said, this is literally what I tell all of our pigeons every morning when we get dressed, to the ones who don't love it. I say, I know you do not want to do this, and I agree, because all of us would rather be naked, but it's what society dictates, so we have to get dressed, put our pants on, and begin our day together. And I literally say this out loud to the birds that don't like having pants put on, and I do think that routine of saying the same thing to them in my calm and sympathetic tone while dressing them does help, because over the years, the ones who are less fond of it have gotten calmer about the process. But with that being said, yes, absolutely, every pigeon can get used to accepting the fact that, yes, I need to pick you up in the morning and put your pants on so that we can all go about our day. But I do think there is a wide variety of personalities, just like some of us people are less touchy-feely and less inclined to hug and snuggle and sit and stand close to people. Some pigeons are the same way. For me, I find that more so, I actually should have said this when Amalia was on earlier, because with me, I find that more so with some of the racers and the king pigeons who have experienced physical abuse before they are rescued. I know that GLPR has rescued a lot of king pigeons with severe bruising on their necks from being grabbed by their necks and thrown, which is literally the only experience that they've had with human touch prior to being rescued. So some birds do have PTSD when it comes to being handled.
Right.
And so for them, it's naturally going to take longer, and they may never be as comfortable with being touched, versus some birds just immediately, maybe not immediately, but once they get to know you. And interestingly, I find a lot of ferals, who maybe they've seen people every day walking by on the sidewalk, and now all of a sudden a person has taken them into the house, and there's cushions and there's all the food that they want, and they're like, where have you been my whole life? I'm going to climb in your lap right now. But there is a wide variety of personalities. That's a more general thing. I have some ideas more specifically to Natalie's question, but I want to bounce it back to Rin, who has their hand up.
I just wanted to say that my very, very big asterisk to what I said is definitely livestock pigeons. So I wanted to put that out there.
Yeah. And Hava, you raise a really good point about PTSD, and I'm going to circle back around to the very first question, which was about my husband again, Boomer, who sometimes I think has PTSD. But it was interesting, Jill, that you said you had a different experience with Boomer before he came to me. So that's interesting. But anyway, I think PTSD is a very important component of pigeon behavior.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Ugh. Natalie, what do you think?
Yeah, I think like, I mean, this being an old German owl and watching them, it was funny, like it was me and both another group of friends both observed this pigeon showing up in the park at about the same time. So I don't think they were out there for very long, maybe about 2 weeks since we first spotted them to when I was able to capture with like the box trap maneuver. And just watching their behavior with the rest of the birds in the park, it was clear that they weren't flocking in the right way and things like that. So I assumed that they were relatively new, and it's judging by the breed, it's like, okay, this bird probably came from an aviary. They weren't banded. So I'm guessing they either got off a truck somewhere and got loose, or I mean, probably dumped. Wasn't a racer, but we know from old German owls that they aren't racers. So
I would try the safflower seeds.
Yeah,
and I would try in a little bowl first. You can
That's
hold
what
it
I've
in a bowl rather than your hand, but I would do a big thing of safflower seeds, and I would try with the force cuddling.
Okay.
Do it
Someone
for a
else
little bit and
that
see
too.
where you get, you know.
And can pants happen before they are okay with being eating out of the hand? Okay. I've had a pair of Bev's Bird Boutique pants hanging up in the cage for about 2 weeks now. So per the recommendation. So they're familiar with the sight of them. But I have not tried putting them on yet. So.
Yes, that's why I asked how long the bird had been with you, because, you know, if the bird had only been with you for say 5 days, I would have said, you know, oh, let's not try putting pants on. Let's not try, you know, picking up the bird. Let's just stay in the realm of, you know, sitting near the bird, talking softly to the bird, because the bird is still transitioning. But since the bird has been with you for 3 weeks now, then I think it's fine to go ahead and put the pants on, because I think at this stage, the more time the bird will get to have out of the cage, now that she's had 3 weeks to go, okay, this is my new home, this cage is my new bedroom, I know where I am and I'm acclimated. Now, the more time she has out of the cage, the more she'll be able to fly and explore and decompress, instead of having this experience of, I've been here for 3 weeks, I'm getting a little stir crazy now.
Exactly. That's sort of my concern. And you know, with the ferals, when you put your hand into like change their food and their paper and stuff, they hunker and they slap and they're totally like a different beast. When I put my hand in there to interact with her, whether feeding or changing out stuff or giving her a couple pets, she does not try to get away. Like she could more than she is, you know? So it's like, I'm like, all right, so you're not totally freaked out by me, because I've seen a freaked out pigeon before, you know, like an injured feral acts much differently than she does. So that gives me that sense of, okay, I could maybe push this a little bit more. And we're going to tonight when we apply the delousing treatment. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, thank you for that.
So
always happy to learn.
The pecking. Oh, sorry.
I just want to say, the group hasn't really mentioned the just, you know, sitting next to them and just quietly talking and cooing and just having that soft eye contact, you know, that's a good method too.
Yeah, I do that as much as I can. And she probably thinks I'm nuts for the amount of talking and cooing I do, but yeah, hopefully when we get unpacked a little bit, we can do that a little bit more consistently. But that's what I usually do for any other rescued bird, is just spend like parallel play time with them to get them acclimated. So yeah. And Ren, I saw your comment about the platform. we gave her a platform. I think there's
Good.
been one poop on it, so I do know that they're going up there. I have not witnessed it yet myself though. But.
How about you? I interrupted you. You wanted to finish your thought, and then Blanca had a comment.
Oh, no, what, Ellie, what you said was
Oh, okay.
so good that I wanted to leave it at that.
Okay.
And then Blanca.
Yeah, the only thing that I would like to add is when I had a lot of success with bowing to the pigeons, like start doing this.
I do
and
that
doing
too.
bowing,
Yes.
very soft and doing the bowing. And like you said, making eye contact with them. And yeah, I mean, I've got good experiences with feral pigeons coming like, settle down, don't be scared of me, understanding that I'm going to help them. I'm not one other people in the street kicking them off. I just want to help them. So, and even with like the big king pigeons that Hava was mentioning before, they came really traumatized. And it was a really long journey for us, for them to come to finally be comfortable with us. But yeah, I mean, talking softly, singing to them, bowing, and always rewarding them with something that they like. And like the pigeon pants, I always try to, well, all the pigeons I have, I don't really think I think anyone likes the pants, like Hava said, everybody wants to be naked. But they know that the Velcro sound means freedom too. So every time they hear the Velcro that I'm opening the pigeon pants, they start kind of getting excited because they know it's time out. It's time to be out of the cage and flying and all that. And they are like, well, it is what it is. But so far, I mean, not even my most imprinted pigeon, she doesn't like the pants, but she knows and she understands that the pants means freedom. So she knows there's something good coming, from being dressed. So it's, or she can just reward them also with the sunflower seeds. So it's not like a traumatic experience. Yeah, that's it.
That's a good point about the pants being then associated with being out and then the seed. So I do feel like I'm on the right track. I felt like I got to the point where I'm like, all right, now what? Like I want to let you out, but you also can't literally poop everywhere when you're out. So we'll keep going on.
I just remembered, Ellie, sorry, I just remembered what I wanted to share before I got distracted because what you said was so important. I do get the question a lot from adopters who are familiar with hookbills and are now having a pigeon family member for the first time about the pecking in the cage. And I think you're absolutely right that this is a good sign that the bird is coming to peck your hand instead of running away. And actually, this is a really good sign because so for pigeons, the only living being they would normally share their cage with, because their cage is like their bedroom or their bed, is their spouse. So when I put my hand in a pigeon's cage, if I were another pigeon who was not their spouse strolling into their cage, their normal behavior would be to come up and peck me or wing slap me to say, get out of the cage. So the fact that the bird feels comfortable doing that to you instead of just running to the back of the cage and cowering means that the bird now feels comfortable enough with you that he or she is treating you like a member of a flock now. Feels comfortable that you're not going to hurt them. They can come up and say, hey, you're not my spouse. Get out of my bed. What are you doing in my bedroom? So that's a good sign and also indicative of the fact that, yes, you can go ahead and bring them out of the cage now. It'll be easier to have bonding time and share treats outside of the cage because often, right, if you're putting your hand in the cage with treats, they're just fixated on, hey, someone who's not my romantic partner is coming in my room. Shoo, shoo. And then they'll actually be able to see the treats and the dish. And so I think these are all positive signs rather than just a sign of aggression or the pigeon doesn't like me.
Yeah,
it's very positive.
That's a really good point. Thanks for mentioning that because I wasn't getting like super angry, afraid vibes. I was getting more like, okay, this is we're on equal footing vibe. So I'm glad to have that validated. Okay, cool. Thanks.
So I want to move on to some questions that I got on Facebook. So make sure we get those answered. Umbria has asked, and we've kind of touched on this already, but maybe we can outline it a little bit better. What the protocol is when you want to introduce a new bird to another bird. My sense is that, not being like the super expert, but I have done, basically, if I already have a bird and they have their defined space, that's their territory, I will introduce the new bird in a cage, and that bird will stay in that cage for a while. And you have to gauge what the time frame is, and you have to gauge what their interactions are to determine when you let the other bird out of the cage. It's hard for me to put into words how to analyze the relationship between the birds to know how to respond. Obviously, you're looking for signs of aggression. I guess that would be the main one, right? Is signs of wing fu and things like that. Any other ideas? Yeah.
Well, definitely, I agree with your idea about putting them in a cage, separate cage first. I don't know. It will depend also. The time frame will depend on if it's a boy, girl. I mean, if this person wants to have a couple, if it's female and male, or if it's just two friends. If it's boy and girl, that's gonna be really easy because she's gonna notice immediately if they're liking each other or if they are not. However, I definitely recommend not to put them together the first day right away, because males can be very aggressive or needy, and the girl might not be ready. So I always tell our adopters, they just need to go to the movies, to the coffee shop first, send some letters through the bars,
right.
And then she's gonna be ready. And if it's just two friends, that's tricky, because especially if it's the same sex, or if it's two boys, yeah, that's gonna be tricky. And like you said, there's no like a specific time frame, but I will definitely, once, let's say 4 days in the cage, and then out of cage time, both of them under supervision, but never put them in the same cage on their own, yes, and without supervision. But if it's a boy and a girl, that's gonna be easier.
Yeah, I fairly recently did an introduction of there were two girl doves, and what we thought was a boy dove, turned out it was a boy dove. Basically we did the cage thing, but within minutes you could tell that one of the girls was like, oh, I really like this other dove. So we put them together and they were immediately like, yes, we love each other. So I did the handoff, but with the caveat that we still had to do separate cage time, even though, the indications were pretty clear that they were gonna bond. So you never know. Some of it is instinct, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, when you observe, but you still have to be safe. So the protocol is a separate cage. And as you say, I think that's a really good protocol to follow. I will put that reply in the Facebook. Yeah, it's good steps to follow. Tava?
Just to add on to that, yes, completely agree with everything that you both said, Ellie and Blanca. And personally, for me, and of course, if it's just two friends, then they're always going to have two separate cages. Or
would they though? If they're two friends, couldn't they live in the same? What if they're in an aviary?
Oh yes, in an aviary. Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
For sure, an aviary would be a totally different, right? Eventually, they're all going to be,
Okay,
together.
And-
I think, yeah, totally different protocol that Jill can speak.
Okay.
And doves are different than pigeons. Doves are completely different. They can actually, you can actually put two doves in the same cage and as friends. Because their relation, can you guys hear me? Because it looks like
yes, you're frozen, but we can hear you. Yeah.
Because they're just more fluid in their relationships.
Okay.
But definitely not pigeons, no.
But you wouldn't just introduce a dove friend in the same cage. You would follow the
have.
same protocol, but they could eventually maybe live in the same cage.
No, I have. I usually, if I,
Oh, you've cut off now. We can't hear you now. No.
should be able to hear me
Oh,
now.
now we are. Oh, hello.
There you go. So what I do, if I do it all by feel, I guess, when I introduce doves. So I will put
Right.
another dove in a cage. I've done this the past, couple times, and I can get but I always leave a cage there or have them have a cage, and I leave it up to the adopter. If one of them is being too aggressive, I have them separate. If they're being fine and they're okay,
Yeah.
leave.
So
So that's how we do doves.
got it. So with somebody who's not real familiar with doves, though, would you be comfortable
Yeah.
with that?
Yeah, I want to give them the
Letting them do it
benefit
that
of the
way?
doubt, and I tell them what to look for. It's
Yeah.
not hard to look for aggression
Yeah.
or, if one is stressed out. And
Okay.
usually if I'm bringing a dove to somebody who already has,
Oh, there she goes. She's out again. Okay, so she makes an interesting point that pigeons and doves have different needs when they're being introduced to each other. Cool. I wouldn't have thought that.
and
Actually.
then they show me certain behaviors.
Right.
And, and if I say, yep, they're married, they're preening each other, or
Right.
they're just hanging out side by side. I just brought a pigeon to somebody who had not a big aviary. It was maybe 3 by 6. Not big enough for me to leave a bird in a cage, and so we're just taking it a day at a time.
Right. So some of the behaviors are positive behaviors are preening, sitting side by side. Some of the
Yeah.
negative behaviors, negative would be wing fighting, obviously, or even just staying away from each other, showing no interest.
I mean, I don't know, staying away from each other is okay. A little bit of fighting isn't horrible,
Mhm.
depending on how big.
You're cutting in and out so much. Okay.
While we're waiting for Jill to come back to us, I know Ren has a specific
On it.
question.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
With regards to this topic.
Please go ahead. Anytime. Go ahead anytime.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of personal dove experience, but I had always heard kind of the opposite, that they work less well communally.
They are just different than pigeons. That's all. They're
Okay.
just kind of, I've got 4 doves in my outside aviary, and the boys are always like, they're always talking to each other like, this is my territory, this is my territory, this is my territory, this is my territory. And I don't know. I mean, it's very entertaining, but I don't know how to describe it. They've just got so much chutzpah.
Yeah, they're busybodies. I have about 20 doves in an aviary, and dove boys have a lot of energy, just like male pigeons, and they spend a lot of time one-upping each other. It's just how they do. And they brag, and they're braggadocious.
Brag. Yeah.
and they're
Braggarts.
ridiculous. And they get on top of each other, and they, as long as nobody's getting hurt, they're okay. And I keep a close eye on my and I have more boys than girls always, and they're all good, and I look for signs of stress. But I have a 6, I have an 8 by 6 by 7 aviary. So they have a lot of room and a lot of spaces to go. But I've found doves are just more fluid. They'll share nests.
They share nests, they share spouses.
Right. They will preen. I have couples that they stay together hard and fast. And I have but some of those, like the hen, with my Whimsy, will go preen. She's a preener. She likes to preen everybody.
It's so nice.
And always goes home to Errol. So
end of the day, just goes home there.
yeah, pigeons would never do that.
Yeah. So
that's my 2 cents.
All right. That's a really, really nuanced answer. That's really good. So 2 other questions, and it's all been almost 2 hours, and I do want to wrap up at 3. Couple other questions that came in. Someone on Facebook asked if we could make suggestions about handmade enrichment. Oh, sorry, Hava. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Everyone knows I'm the nosy busybody. Do we want to answer the chat? Do we mind if we answer the question in chat first, really quickly, since it's, I think, a really
I didn't see it.
really
Sorry.
good tie-in to what
Yes. Yes.
Nicole asked an excellent related question.
Yes, please. Yes. What is the answer?
So I think probably different organizations have different protocols, but GLPR always recommends a minimum 2-week quarantine period. And during that quarantine period, even if the bird appears perfectly 100% healthy, we recommend doing a preventative dewormer and coccidia treatment and canker or trichomonas treatment, just a 1-dose preventative, and that's a whole nother that I'm not going to launch into right now, but yeah, a minimum of 2 weeks, and then at the end of the 2 weeks, if the bird looks very healthy, you're good to go. Obviously, if you're seeing signs of illness or injury indicating that the bird needs longer than 2 weeks, then you can extend it longer.
So going back a bit, so before you're going to introduce a bird to another bird, you would quarantine that bird first? Even if you're doing an introduction? I mean, how do you do an introduction? So Jill, you don't, is it if you think the bird is sick, or?
I was gonna say, assuming this is a brand, sorry, I guess I should say, assuming this is a brand new rescue. This is a bird that I just got off the street or out of someone's yard. If this is a bird that Nicole,
that we know, yeah.
Right, yes, exactly. And okay, good. Nicole, I'm glad I interpreted that correctly. That this talking about a brand new rescue, just because we have no idea where this bird has been, where this bird came from, what this bird got into.
And Hava, you said your preventive was trick and worms and parasites. I'm guessing external parasites.
Oh yes, that's the 4th one. Yes, thank you. So canker, aka trick, a dewormer, a coccidia treatment.
Coccidia, okay.
And then external parasites, like the little bird mite spray. Yes.
Are we basically, we're pretty, I think Palomacy is pretty similar to that, right? Right, Jill? I don't know about coccidia.
Well, we're working on it with Hava right now. Elizabeth is asking her some questions, but we give them a Spartrix, we deworm.
Yeah, we do at least 2.
We don't do the coccidia treatment, but because usually, I can't remember how long is that treatment for, Hava?
So actually, I'm really glad that, Jill, I'm really glad you and Elizabeth asked about alternative treatments for intake coccidia. So, and initially, Blanca remembers these days, right? Initially, GLPR was not treating for coccidia on intake. And we decided to do we did kind of an informal study where for a period of time, we had an arrangement worked out with a local vet that enabled us to take every new rescue to the vet for a fecal.
Oh.
And so we had a large volume of birds, over 100 birds going through this process.
Mhm.
And we discovered that 98% of the new rescues all had coccidia.
That's crazy.
So we said, okay, from now on, we're going to treat all new intakes with coccidia.
That's
So,
good
sorry,
to know.
for coccidia. So, and initially we were doing, like Jill was asking, there's something you can add. I think there are a couple of different easy methods that depend on everyone's situation and preference. So if you have a whole aviary of birds or a bunch of new rescues that you need to batch treat at once, there is a powder called Corid that you can put in the water for 10 days. And that's easy for large groups of birds because even though you have to do it for 10 days, it just goes in the drinking water and you don't have to catch anybody.
Mhm.
But I'm so glad that Jill and Elizabeth revisited this over text message because more recently we've started using a 1-dose Coxitab pill. And with credit to Christina and Blanca and Ren for implementing this. If we get a bird and we're not seeing any signs of illness, we just want to make sure we're covering for coccidia. It's a one-time dose, it's a pill. It's very easy to give to a bird if it's a single bird situation and you already have the birds in your hand. And both of these are available very economically over the counter.
I would love to have another session like this, just talking about medications and preventative health and diseases that we need to treat and things like that. Last question, though, I want to ask everybody, and it's for everybody. Oh, we were talking about, sorry, second to last question. Handmade enrichment. Handmade enrichment ideas. I think of the toilet roll. You can stuff things in the toilet roll. I've never had luck with using the toilet roll. Some people cut up toilet rolls for making nesting materials like pine needles, but they're little bits of lengths of toilet roll. Any other ideas for handmade enrichment? We talked about mirrors and bells and things, but handmade specifically? Yeah.
So my favorite handmade that is specifically targeted towards pigeons. So I always think of plush toys as, and for playing small plush toys. Let me try and find an example, and then I'll tell you how to make the super easy handmade version.
Oh, a handmade plush toy.
Well, it's not a cute plush toy. So this is larger than the one I was looking for. I was looking for the little dinosaur. But so usually I would recommend one about half the size of this so that it's very easy for them to pick up and throw.
Fits in the palm of your hand.
Really, yes, exactly. Palm of your hand size, I think is ideal.
Mhm.
As long as we're talking about just general toys, right? If we're talking about the underemployed husband, then the plush pigeon.
Yeah, no,
are really nice. But, and so if you think about what's something that is soft and fits in the palm of your hand. So I take an
rolled up
old
sock.
Yes. And I sort of fold it in on itself until it's a ball.
Yeah.
And pigeons are wonderfully low maintenance and they are not picky that it's not a store-bought stuffed animal. So that's my favorite.
Wow. That's good. Anybody else have any ideas? Anybody at all? Anybody in using handmade enrichment for their pets? Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, most of my birds are aviary birds. So
Yeah, so you don't, Blanca?
Dairy Cheddar's plush toys.
Well, it's not a toy, but I know that some of my pigeons, they really like to fold clothes with me. It's not very fun for me because I'm doubling at work, you know, because I'm folding them and they are next to me, unfolding them and fighting with them. But they have such a good experience doing that, especially with the socks. They hate socks. And so I'm doing the socks and they're just next to me waiting, and I pretend I'm doing it. I put it next to them and they are just like fighting like dinosaurs with the socks and then killing them because I'm doing it on top of the washing machine and the dryer. And then she's like fighting and tossing them off. And then she looks like, oh yeah, it's there already.
When I just picture them fighting you, I have a picture of the very famous pigeon on Facebook who loves her tea bags. You guys all know whom I mean?
Yes.
There's the pigeon who perches with her tea bags. I mean, just find these odd things around the house, you know?
He picks up her tea bags.
Mm-hmm.
Another, it's not homemade per se, but it's inexpensive and readily available. So similar to what Blanca said, and I think this really speaks to the fact that maybe the most important piece of enrichment for pigeons is being involved in household activities and being involved in what we are doing.
Yeah.
Because I find when I'm writing with a pen, I almost always have a pigeon standing here, pecking at the end and then grabbing it. And so sometimes what I do is if I have pens that are out of ink or maybe are not my favorite, I'll put a little tape around the cap just to make sure the cap doesn't fly off and, you know, then be a health hazard or ink everywhere. And then I'll just be like, these are your pens.
You can take the ink, you can take the ink thing out of it. You take the end off. You take the end off, you just give them the outside plastic with no cap. Perfect.
Perfect. Yes, exactly.
I have one suggestion and one observation.
Mm-hmm.
My suggestion is Q-tips.
Oh yeah, a lot of birds like Q-tips. Yes.
Yeah,
Mine don't.
But a very varied time with like toys because I find that they just find random stuff that they like. But Q-tips I think has been the most consistent thing that I've found that they like.
Yeah.
The second thing is not so much like an active thing, but to chime in the same way that Hava did about like involving them.
Mm-hmm.
My pigeons are in my living room and we often watch TV at the end of the night. And I have found that my pigeons love to watch TV with me.
Yeah.
Because the way like my setup is that their cages and stuff are along the back here and then the TVs are over here. And so at night, especially when it's a little darker, they'll come out and line up across the side there and just loaf and watch TV.
I'd like a picture, please.
I'll get up and go back.
Can we please get a picture?
I gotta see if I can find one.
Okay, well, you can post it later too. That's cool.
I can find one.
I want to close with the final question, which was someone who's asking what she thinks is an embarrassing question, but I don't think it's embarrassing. Do we all have preferences as to what the pigeon looks like, as to which pigeons we fall in love with?
I like wonky ones.
I know you do. Yes, wonky ones. That makes sense. Yes. I kind of like wonky ones too, but I kind of like ferals. I kind of like the gray ones myself.
I love
I like them all, but what's that?
I love the red ferals.
Red ferals. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Hava?
So I actually was really excited for this question. This was the one question that I read ahead of time.
I know, it's a great question.
And I thought it was a really good question because I wanted to speak to the fact that she mentioned that it was an embarrassing question.
I know. Yeah.
That she felt it was an embarrassing question.
Yeah.
And so I think, so I'll say two things about that quickly. We all, there's all something innately that we are drawn towards. And that's, who knows what it is, what we are drawn towards aesthetically, what the heart wants, what the heart wants. And I think the important thing is that we're adopting rescued birds.
Yes.
If if you have, you know, a heart for, if you are just drawn towards a fancy pigeon or a black and white pigeon or an all black pigeon or whatever, and you're feeling embarrassed for having an aesthetic preference, you're giving a bird a home who needs a home. You're giving a rescued bird a loving home. Just embrace that. And because they're all out there, you know, people will say, oh my goodness, I have just, you know, if you are drawn towards Syrian high flyers, please don't go buy one from a breeder because GLPR has several available for adoption.
Yeah.
And
I think you make a really good point about the aesthetics. And I think me coming from a sort of a place of doing art, I sometimes wonder, you know, is my art any good? Is anyone going to like it? Is this pretty? Does it have to be pretty for me to love it? The questions of aesthetics come up a lot. And you know, I ask, are things that are beautiful worthy of my attention too, when there's so many problems in the world? And aesthetics are very important, especially to a visually oriented species like human beings. And I just think of Andrew Garn's book about the New York pigeons and all those beautiful pigeons and their beautiful variety. And if you find one more beautiful than the other, then go for it. They're all beautiful. And it's up to each of us to find the beauty in all of them. Because what if one person just likes white ones? That's okay, because the next person is going to like black ones. And we're all going to come together and we're going to say they're all beautiful in their ways. It's perfectly fine to have a preference. As you say, I think you said it much better than me.
you said it beautifully, even with a literary reference, and I completely agree. And I think one of the things that I find heartening in this work is that there is the right home out there for every bird.
Right.
Because for the person, you know, for the person who is drawn to fancies, next to them virtually is the person who's drawn to ferals, and everyone in between.
Or the one who's drawn to the big white ones.
Yes, exactly. The big white puffy puff clouds.
Yeah. Not to mention all the really fancy ones with that and the,
Right.
you know, and the wonky ones. Let's not forget the wonky ones, the ones who are not pretty necessarily. I think they're all pretty. But some of us are attracted to something other than aesthetics, I think. More power to them.
Absolutely. And I think we all have different reasons for what draws us towards pigeons.
Yes, they're not necessarily all aesthetic reasons. Yes.
Yes, for
true.
some people, it's their beauty and their intelligence, and that's wonderful. And for some people, it's their resilience and their ability to adapt to
And
challenges.
they're loving natures.
Their
And
loving
their ability
natures,
to adapt.
their ability to adapt to the wonky leg that, well, we all saw Paprika, who Ren was holding earlier, who was rescued with 2 legs. Paprika can't walk because, similar to Astrid, the legs are like this. But Paprika knows she's beautiful, and Paprika has an amazing life with her people who love her.
Yeah, you're sitting on my computer. You're messing it up. You're messing up my computer. I was wondering why it wasn't working. Okay, so it's 3:02. I really didn't want to go past 2 hours. I'm hoping everyone is thoroughly tired out and happy. And I would really love to do this again soon. I hope you guys will all value this time, and I certainly have. So I hope we can do it again. And we'll talk maybe about something else next time.
Yeah, sounds good. This was great. It was a success.
I think so, yeah. And it's really been nice to talk to everybody and meet some new people. I also want to say that this recording is going to be available on the Facebook page as a link, and I'm not quite sure where we're going to put it yet. But it should be also somewhere up on the Pigeon Rescue. And I'll send it over to GLPR as well somehow. So it'll be available for people to watch.
That would be great. We will post it online also, and love the idea of the medical and medication questions for next time.
Yeah.
I'm already seeing our GLPR shelter director, Christina, saying, I'll be there.
It's great.
And I'm also hoping that when we post this recording online, that might inspire people to think of questions for the next event.
Yes,
So
good.
I'm excited.
Good. I'll talk to you about it then offline. Perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you
All
for
right.
having
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
us. Bye.
Bye.